keep going and just like let them know that it's hope, it's will, it's a way, it's faith. Keep faith and don't never give up, don't never stop.
Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams.
What is going on, my fellow nerds? Operator Otter here, and today we're going to discuss what I believe is the best Sorc build for Dawn of the Hunt in Path of Exile 2, which is the Cast on Crit Arc Stormweaver. The way that this build works is that we are no longer using Spark as our DPS. We are actually using Spark as our engine creator. Essentially, we are using the crit rate of Spark being very, very high with being able to actually proc the cast on critical. And what do I mean by that? Well, if we look at our Spark, we are able to have 85.39%. With that 85.39% crit, when they go off and they start hitting enemies, they're going to start building this cast on critical very quickly. And we're going to add this with some impetus in the actual map clear. And because of this, we are going to gain energy so fast that it will actually cause this arc to cast. And when this arc casts, we are able to put in all of these damage multipliers onto it, and it will hit very hard. There are some mechanics to arc that we will be talking about, but another reason as to why we are really wanting to focus this is because in our passive tree, there is a part called Invocated Efficiency, which actually gives us 100% spell damage to a triggered spell. And so these triggered arcs actually do more damage than arc if we could manually cast them, but we're also getting the DPS of Spark. So we are casting Spark with a decent amount of DPS, and then we are auto casting these arcs that could do more damage if we were just to manually cast them. And that is kind of the philosophy behind the foundation of the build. But now let's talk about a little bit more of the advanced mechanics of how arc is actually playing out and why this build works the way it does. The first change to Arc is that it now has a pulse. This pulse happens when the target is shocked, and it will deal 60% of the base damage of the Arc. Arc can now no longer shock. As we go here, you can see that it can no longer shock. This is not a problem. We will be able to shock things multiple times with multiple facets. It's not an issue. We don't need to worry about it. But a question that we may have is, well, in our passive tree, we have this strike twice passive that allows us to shock a target twice. Does that allow the pulse to go off twice? Yes, it does. We have tested this multiple times. Yes, this does actually allow the pulse of Arc to actually go off twice. And because this is 60% of the base damage for Arc, it is now 120% more damage to Arc, which is now more than doubling the base damage of Arc that we had before they actually put in this buff. And that is one change to why Arc is doing so much damage, but there is another as well that gets a little wonky. So one of the cool things is Mana Tempest interaction with Arc. So what happens with Mana Tempest is that it's going to empower the spell and give it 100% of the base damage as an extra empowered lightning damage. And so what that means is that if Arc was doing 100 damage, Tempest is going to add 100 damage. And if Pulse is doing 60, then Tempest would add 60, and so on and so forth, right? No, what's actually happening, for whatever reason, the coding for bugs, is that even though Pulse is doing 60, the Tempest is actually attaching itself to the base damage of Arc. And so actually you're getting 3 instances of the Tempest doing 100 damage rather than 2 instances of the 60, which is weird. But it gets even wonkier when we add something like Unleash. Unleash is a support gem that says that for every 200% cast time of a spell, that spell is going to gain a seal. And when you cast the spell with that seal, you can see them right here, they will start gaining. Based on the cast time, it will do 50% of the base damage of the Arc. Okay, cool. So then what that would mean is that if Arc was doing 100 damage, then the seals each would do 50 and 50, right? And then according to what Mana Tempest does, being 100% of the damage, it should be 50, 50, and then 30, 30 of the pulses, right? That makes sense. No, that's not what's happening. For whatever reason, even in the Unleashes with the 50% reduced base damage, the Tempest is actually adding the original base damage of the Arc being 100. And so what happens with Unleash is that you get the first Arc cast here, and then you get 2 more Arc cast at 50% value, so you can just say 2 Arc cast, and then you get another 9 Arc cast. And so when you cast Unleash with Mana Tempest on, you're actually getting the equivalent of casting Arc 11 times. And then on top of that, you also have these pulses that are going out, and if you add all of this up, this is the equivalent of damage of another 2.5 arcs. So really what happens with Mana Tempest when you actually cast it with Unleash, it's actually doing the equivalent of like 13.5 arc cast. It's wild. It's like, why is that happening? I have no idea, but that's the combo. So enjoy it, and we're going to run with it. All right, now from here, what we could do is we could actually go into the detail of every single gem choice, and we could go into the detail of every single passive choice. In fact, we could go into the detail of every single rotation choice, because what I did here was, as you can see, I went to a Zesh level 0, and I started doing openers on Zesh for about 9 hours and recorded every single damage, and this is the good ones. Trust me, there's a lot more data than this, of trying to figure out what would be the best combination of crit to spell damage to all sorts of stuff actually working in this build to actually cause the best damage to a boss, because that's where this build actually has a very weak point. It has incredible wave clear and incredible mob clear, but it's very weak against the bosses, or so I thought until I actually figured out what to do. And I'm just going to tell you what that answer is. I could also talk about how we tried to figure out an infinite combo with actually arc being a lower cast, and the fact that the cast on crit, if the crit's high enough, can actually cause the trigger to trigger on itself, which could cause it to actually go infinite. And so if we actually caused the mana to be reduced enough with a trigger spell that was recovering our mana every single time we invoked a spell, we could actually cause an infinite combo, kind of like last season with Lightning Bolt and Temporalis, and actually just blow up any single boss from there. But hey, they actually nerfed that and said, hey, when it comes to triggered spells, there's actually some type of cap on how many of those spells can be invoked within a specific number of frames, meaning we don't get that. So I'm just going to give you the answer as to like what the most DPS is, but I want you to feel verified in the fact that I actually did my homework in the testing and the work to try to figure out what to give you guys as the best version of damage that I figured out so far, and I'm sure there will be improvements to come, but this is what I got. So the first thing that we need to know is the power of pinpoint critical, being the fact that it actually gives 60% more crit hit chance. Now, this less crit hit damage part actually doesn't matter, and the reason being is that these gloves just set our crit hit damage at the max value. It doesn't matter how much crit hit damage we have that's reduced through our tree, through our passives, through our it doesn't matter. Like, these are the last thing, and they state that our crit hit damage is 300%. So this is literally just saying, hey, your crit is multiplied by 60%, and it's not 60% additive, it's 60% multiplicative. So if I take this out, you can see that my crit is 53.37. I put this in, it is now 85.39. It is an insanely powerful gem, and you can see the DPS just absolutely skyrocket with this gem. We are going to keep this here for Spark, and then we're going to actually have Impetus in our cast on critical for the map. So when we're going through our map and we're actually clearing out the mobs, this is the best combination right here with pinpoint critical in Spark and with Impetus in cast on critical. And essentially, as you go through the map, the combo is this: Orb of Storms, Tempest, Spark. That's it. Orb of Storms, Tempest, Spark. Orb of Storms, Tempest, Spark. That's it. That's the combo. Seriously. And everything will blow up. And when you see an elite or you see a target that you want to explode, you are going to be running Arc down here that has all of this. Oh, it has extra crit. It's going to have the lightning resistance to just blow through it. It has Unleash. And you're just going to cast that with Tempest, and it's just going to blow up the elite. It will literally just cause it to explode like this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the boss damage. Now, the problem with the boss damage with this build is the fact that cast-ons give you 1 energy per power. And the problem with bosses is that they have 20 power. And so instead of getting 1 energy, you actually gain 20. But you also have this modifier being 57%. If you run Impetus, it's another 40%. So it's 197%, which means that when you crit against a boss, you're actually going to gain like 40 energy. But the problem here is that you have like 80% chance to crit. So you're instantly going to fill your cast-on. And the problem with cast-ons is that when they do trigger, they are mimicking you casting the spell, including the mana cost of the spell, which means if you cause this trigger to happen over and over again really, really fast, you're just going to instantly drain your mana pool and you cannot keep up the DPS. This has been a problem for a lot of Sorcs. It just drains the mana so fast and we just lose all of our damage. But then we have Orb of Storms and stuff out that are keep attacking the boss, and they're still triggering the cast-ons that we can't actually re-enter into Tempest to do any damage. And so all of a sudden we have good burst, and then like that's it, it's over. So one of the things that we've tried to do to solve this is say, hey, let's run cast on Shock and try that. Another option has been, let's use Choir of Storms because it ignores lightning resistance, and then we'll use Comet instead on cast on Shock with Hypothermia, which is another curse to lower the cold resistance, and that's been working okay. What I have found personally for me is that actually let's stop trying to fix the mana issues and let's just embrace the fact that we're going to burn through our mana and make it so that these triggered arcs are just going to do as much damage as humanly possible. And for me personally, I have netted out by far the most DPS doing that. So let's talk about the rotation and how we're going to accomplish that. So the first thing that we're going to do when we're going against a boss is we're actually going to do a gem swap. Right before we enter the boss, we're just going to do a single gem swap. We're pulling pinpoint critical out of Spark. We're going to replace impetus into the cast on critical, and we're going to put impetus right here into this placeholder for cast on shock. That's all this is here for. It's just being a placeholder for this support gem. What this does is it throws the critical hit chance of arc into 85.39%. And when this thing crits, it does so much damage because of the 300% damage bonus with the mana tempest, with all of the pulses going off. It is absolutely insane how much damage this arc can deal. Okay, what are we replacing in this gem slot for Spark? Nothing. We're just leaving it there. And there's nothing to put there. There's nothing. Don't even worry about it because we're not even going to cast Spark in our rotation whatsoever. Doesn't matter. Now, the actual rotation that we're going to be doing is that we're going to go to a target when the boss spawns. What we are going to do is we're going to curse it first. After we've cursed it, we're going to put down our Sigil of Power. From here, we're going to cast 2 of our Orb of Storms, and we're going to suck up our mana potion. As soon as our mana comes to right about here, this is when we're going to cast our Tempest, and we are going to do the Unleash Arc. This Unleash Arc is going to cause multiple damage instances that can crit, which is going to trigger the cast-ons, and it's going to cause this kind of infinite chain. It's not an infinite chain. It stops at about like 5 or 6 arc casts, but 5 or 6 arc casts is enough to drain our entire mana pool, and we just do massive damage with like 3 to 4 million damage burst cycles. So now what we're going to do is we're going to watch a VOD, and we're going to go over it step by step, and then you guys can mimic it in your own gameplay. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the boss rotation. So the way that we're going to do this is that as the boss spawns, we're going to go ahead and put down our curse. Then we're going to put down our Sigil of Power. Then we put down our 2 Orb of Storms. Because of the gem selection, the Orb of Storms are going to instantly shock the target. From here, we're sucking down a mana potion, waiting until our mana gets to about 80-90%. Then we're going to cast our Mana Tempest, and then we're going to cast our Arc, and it's going to go through our triggers and just let them fly. And by the time our triggers are done, we should have dealt about 3 to 4 million damage. As you can see here, we're almost at the upper end of the 3 mils. And what do we do from here? Well, now what we're going to do is suck down our Mana Potions, drop 2 more Orb of Storms, and then Tempest and try to Arc before the Sigil of Power ends. We don't care where our mana is at. We're just going to go through it, and then that's going to actually cause the boss to drop. So let's go ahead and watch this in real time. Curse, Sigil, Orb, Mana Potion, Tempest, Arc. Boom, dead. Okay, now Orb, Mana Tempest, Arc. Dead. That's it. And that's essentially the combination. We're going to repeat that against T4 Pinnacle bosses. We're just, after this, we re-put down the Sigil of Power. We put down both of our orbs. We wait till the double shock, Tempest, boom. And we just keep doing that over and over again. It's going to take about 8 to 10 cycles to kill a T4 Pinnacle boss, but they are possible because I have all T4 in all of my Atlas map tree for every single activity. So it is very much possible to do this. But that's essentially how we do our boss rotation. So I hope that helps. All right, last thing that I want to talk about is, okay, what if you actually get enough spirit in your amulet and in your chest to be able to have an extra 100 spirit and run Archmage plus cast on crit? Is that worth it? I'm actually going to say no. And the reason being is that it doesn't become worth it until you hit a breakpoint of 2,500 mana, as the math I've done has proved. At 2,500 mana, essentially what's going to happen is you have enough mana in your pool to get an extra cast from 5 arcs to 6 arcs, and that 6th arc with the damage bonus that Archmage is giving you is going to equal out the 9 cast of arcs that you could get with cast on critical at that 9 at the same time. And what I'm saying is that the extra mana cost with the extra damage cost that Archmage is giving you is actually not meaning just how many extra cast of the arc that you can get with cast on critical by itself. You're going to lose quite a bit of energy shield to pull that one off in your armor, so you're probably going to lose about 500 to 600, and at the same time you're not even going to see a damage bonus until you're able to hit 2,500 mana, which isn't even possible with these gloves. It's literally an impossible feat to hit, and when you do hit it, you're only going to get like 20% multiplicative more damage, which isn't a much for losing almost 10 to 15% of your energy shield when this build is already squishy. So I don't recommend it, but if someone can make it work, awesome. I'm glad to see that. I want to see this build become as strong as it can. Other than that, that's all I have for you. I hope that you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the guide. I'm sure there's going to be tons of questions and comments on how we can improve this or how we can make it better or other variants that you would like to run. Please leave the comments below. I love being able to talk to you. I love being able to answer any questions and stuff like that. I do stream, so make sure to check that out on my YouTube Live or my Twitch. The links are in the description below. Other than that, have yourselves a wonderful day. Operator Otter, out.